Well, welcome everyone. I'm Colleen Samuels, Executive Director for DRMAC, and I want to thank you all for attending today's Regional Coordinating Council meeting on alternative mobility options. But before we get started, Diana and Stephanie are going to go over some housekeeping items.
Thanks, Colleen. Just like we've been doing at our past meetings, I'm going to go over some basic Zoom functions. To mute and unmute, click on the microphone icon on the bottom left corner of your Zoom. If you'd like to access the chat, you can click on the speech bubble located in the middle of the Zoom window. And lastly, if you'd like to use the raise your hand function, you can find the smiley face icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the Zoom icon. Please keep yourself muted during the meeting unless you're called on.
And if you haven't done so already, I know a lot of you have, but please go ahead and type your name and organization in the chat just so we can keep track of who is here. And as always, you can use the chat as needed for questions, comments, and you can also, of course, use the raise your hand function to be called on. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and hear from the team to do some staff updates. So I'll go first. So hi, I'm Stephanie O'Neill. I'm the program manager of special projects here at DRMAC. I primarily oversee our travel training program. If you've been in a meeting with me before, you probably know that we're still doing virtual trainings and in-person trainings in both English and Spanish. So we encourage folks to continue to sign up for those. Back to school is here. So if you know any schools or any programs that would be interested in getting some training set up, we're happy to connect with them to get that going. And Diana?
Thanks, Steph. My name is Diana Castro, and I am the Bilingual Operations and Outreach Coordinator. I am also the person who creates the extra dose. So please sign up from our website to get that newsletter. We send it monthly. Thank you for being here. Latoya?
Thanks, Diana. I'm Latoya Paranti. For those who don't know me, I'm the Program and Development Manager here. Currently, I am in charge in building up our volunteer recruitment. Hopefully, we can get some more going. But we've had quite a bit over the year of hours donated, which we really appreciate for those who have contributed. The other thing I wanted to bring up is we have a focus group coming up next week on the 20th from 11 to 12. This is our second round of a focus group. So those who weren't able to attend the first focus group on rebuilding up the LCCs, please come and join this one. We would love your feedback, some ideas on maybe, how to reach certain areas, or even maybe some contacts that you might have in place for that. So please come join. We're really actively trying to get that going again. It's really important. Thanks. Maria?
Thanks, Latoya. My name is Maria Griffin. I am DRMAC Administrative and Marketing Assistant. I am also one of the voices behind the Information and Assistance line. If you or anybody that you know needs transportation resources, please let them know to give us a call. I am also in charge of the social media content on our platforms. Please follow us and like for news and updates on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Holly?
Thanks, Maria. Hi, my name is Holly, and I'm the Program and Training Assistant here at DRMAC. Benisha?
Hi, I'm Benisha Shrestha, and I'm Development Coordinator and Grant Writer with DRMAC. I primarily oversee grant writing with DRMAC. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for those updates. Now that we've heard from the DRMAC team, I'm going to speak about the DRMAC membership drive. We have 3 membership levels: business, organization, and personal. DRMAC cannot do the work that we do without the support of our community. Please consider DRMAC for your donations, which is not only tax deductible, but currently we are offering new members that sign up by October 31st an Uber voucher. Reach out to us at info@drmac-co.org for any questions.
All right, thanks, Diana. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to our first presenter, Chrissy Breet, I think, hopefully I pronounced that right, from the Front Range Passenger Rail District. So Chrissy, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I just realized it'd be easier for me if I made my presentation into a PDF, so I'm waiting for that to load. And then after that, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I have some slides that are, looks like I need permission to share my screen. Can you guys do that? Let's see. Sweet, awesome, thank you. I have some slides that are a little hefty, but my hope is that I can kind of give a high level overview, and then I'm really would love just to hear your questions and have discussion. So let's keep that in mind. Again, my name is Chrissy Bright. I'm at the Front Range Passenger Rail District. And so I will define what Front Range Passenger Rail is and what the district is, but just kind of a place to start for our conversation today. We're looking at planning a new transportation choice along Colorado's Front Range. So that's kind of where the major communities are, sort of Fort Collins down through Pueblo, kind of that major population area around I-25. And I think probably like a lot of presentations you guys go to, some of the things that we're wrestling with as a state that we're looking at right now is just the challenges that a lot of our major highways have regarding congestion, safety, travel reliability. We know the state is also really focused on greenhouse gases, so kind of emissions from vehicles, and just knowing that transportation is the largest contributor to greenhouse gases, that's this bad air quality emissions in the state. And increasingly, as Colorado becomes harder and harder to afford to live here, we recognize that people tend to live further and further from their jobs where they're trying to get to. So we have a state where we're all kind of disconnected in a lot of ways. Things are challenging now in terms of travel, and we recognize that, or we're told by the state population folks that it's intended to grow 3 million people over the next 30 years in that kind of, again, that kind of Front Range area. So given all that, we have an idea for a new travel option that can hopefully help to address some of those challenges. So Front Range Passenger Rail is the idea for a new inner city train service. And I'll kind of explain in a later slide what inner city means. It's kind of a new idea for Colorado. And this first kind of train service would serve Fort Collins through Denver down to Pueblo, with kind of stops the major cities along the route. We're starting with kind of that Pueblo to Fort Collins segment, but with a long-term vision of extending to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and further south into New Mexico. One thing that's kind of interesting is that we are looking to use the existing railroad tracks the freight railroads own. That helps us get this project started sooner than later and makes the costs less scary. So not to get too technical, but I just wanted to show this slide because in Colorado, many of us are probably familiar with RTD system, which is commuter rail. And that's the kind of trains like this you see going to the A line, or some of the ones you see in downtown Denver that are the light rail. And those ones tend to kind of serve stations every 2 to 4 miles. They're really intended to connect kind of more suburban communities, generally to a downtown area. And the trains don't go all that fast because they stop pretty frequently. What we're talking about instead is inner city. And so that means that rather than trying to connect kind of communities within one city, we're trying to connect cities to each other. So for example, the train would go from Pueblo to downtown Colorado Springs, to downtown Castle Rock, to downtown Denver, and those kind of longer trip distances. The train goes faster, which is great, makes it more competitive with highways and things like that because it doesn't have to stop as frequently. And it has better services on board. You know, most of the RTD trains, you won't see a bathroom, you won't see a water fountain. The kind of train that we're talking about will have those sort of features. It'll have Wi-Fi, it'll have tables to work at, things like that. So again, why is this a good idea? We recognize that with winter, anytime there's a car crash on I-25, your travel is really delayed and it's unpredictable and it's hard to know when you're going to get where you need to get. Again, we want to better connect all our communities across the Colorado Front Range that oftentimes it's hard to get between them unless you have a private car. One cool thing, and you can see this down by Union Station in Denver at least, is that some of these local stations can be really cool areas that are fun places to spend time at and are good kind of boosts for our local economy. And then again, kind of a greener transportation option that helps support some of our state's environmental goals. One thing that I really like to emphasize is that this train can serve all of us. It's not just people that are trying to get to and from their offices. It's people that are trying to get to and from Nuggets games and Rockies games. It's people, you know, pretty much every, not every, but a lot of the major cities along the Front Range have colleges, like Fort Collins and Longmont, Boulder, Pueblo, Colorado Springs, Denver. And so it's a way to connect college students to different communities and to their homes. People without vehicles, it's a way to get around. Not only is the state growing in population, but it's also aging. And so how can people that have limited mobility also get around the state? So a lot of times people mention that they're kind of hesitant to invest in transit options because there's more work remotely. You know, we're all on Zoom right now. But this is really intended to kind of address trips all throughout the week of different kinds of uses. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but I think what I wanted just to communicate is that there's been about 15 or so years of kind of planning studies and planning work that is informing where we're at today. And we've kind of taken some time of looking at this big picture, you know, what is our ultimate vision? What is the ideal system, right? And then kind of from there sort of gotten smaller and smaller into that. What is the first step that we want to take? So that's just the key takeaway from this slide. So in 2021, our state legislature, our state government created a brand new kind of local government district with the sole purpose to bring this Front Range passenger rail to reality. And so if you can see my map, and I know it's wildly not accessible, so I apologize, you can kind of sort of see that blue, kind of sky blue outline. That's the outline of the Front Range Passenger Rail District. And just like RTD, there's, you know, a boundary, kind of a service area boundary, and that also ties in with the funding boundary. So not unlike RTD, for this system to actually become real and for us to build it and make it happen and to operate it, we will need voter funding. So in the future, as we finish up our planning work and do more of our outreach, we'll be going to the voters with a ballot initiative asking for probably likely a small sales tax increase so we can actually fund the system. But what's cool is that now that this new government district, Front Range Passenger Rail District exists, is that we have that ability to actually collect the money and to build this and design it and make it happen. Again, as you can see on this map, kind of sort of can see, these are the existing railroad tracks that already exist in Colorado that we could likely use. You know, unlike highways that are publicly owned, these are owned by private companies. And so it requires some degree of negotiation and payment in order to use them and have their access rights. But it's cool because then they already exist. And as I mentioned, it's kind of Fort Collins down through Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and again, that long-term vision in the future connecting towards Trinidad and more southern Colorado. I don't know how much you all are familiar with the bipartisan infrastructure law or IIJA. It was President Biden passed a big law. I want to say last year, maybe it's 2 years now. Time keeps happening. That is billions of dollars in new funding. And a big part of that new funding is to support passenger rail programs exactly like this. So Colorado's in a pretty cool spot where we now have this new local government, the district, created to kind of help bring this to be. Our governor is a big supporter of this idea, and the federal government has a lot of funding that's available to kind of actually make this happen. Right now, we're working with CDOT, so the Colorado Department of Transportation, to kind of define that implementation plan for that initial service. So it's looking at things like, what will the route be? Where will the train stop? How much will it cost? Will there be different kinds of fees for different sorts of users? What kind of improvements are needed to actually make it happen? What kind of new, you know, safety improvements, track improvements, things like that. And then again, what will you actually be able to do on the train? What kind of amenities will there be? There will be probably early next year more public outreach opportunities where they'll be sharing information and looking for feedback, but that's kind of the current planning work happening right now. Again, just wanted to note that, again, federal funding, this is our grant application for a massive federal funding project that we are hoping to hear in November if we are included in this new project, this new program for funding, and we anticipate being included, but just wanted to let you know that we are looking at federal funding options to make this happen. I only share this slide because I want to communicate just that we've done a lot of work so far. So the blue line kind of shows all that's been done, and there's still a lot more to go. So we're at the quirky spot of we have a pretty cool vision, working on the final plan, figuring out the numbers to make it happen. But there's still construction, there's still actually making it happen. And so, if when we get the voter support to fund this, we can actually make it happen. And the timeline essentially, they probably see the first train service in the next 10 to 15 years. So pretty far off, but still in most of our lifetimes. So it's kind of funny to think back, at least in my life 10 years ago, and it's like, that was a long time ago, but it also really wasn't. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. Wow, it's funny that middle icon got messed up. It's supposed to be hands, they look kind of funky. Anyways, so in case anyone learns more about this today and wants to, understand how you can be a supporter and kind of help make this happen, with obviously no pressure today, but some of the things that we're just thinking about in terms of, how we can spread the word is just talking to your friends, family, colleagues about this and kind of generating local excitement about the idea of this new passenger train throughout Colorado. One thing that we're trying to do is kind of develop a network of organizations that support this project or this idea of passenger rail, and trying to slowly but surely add those logos to our website. And then again, later this year, early next year, there'll be some opportunities to provide input on that plan that's happening right now. So we would definitely want to share with you any of those opportunities. I know I spoke quickly, but I did it in part because I wanted to, if anyone has comments or questions, to be able to answer those and not just have me talk the entire time. So I'm going to pause now, and I'm happy to take any questions or anything. Yeah, go for it, Cami.
Good, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. That was helpful. I'm wondering if you're thinking of going to the state vote, sounds like, right?
Yeah.
How come you aren't advertising as Fort Collins to Trinidad? Why is a Pueblo to Trinidad being carved off as like a future thing? Because it doesn't present as necessarily statewide if you just say Fort Collins to Pueblo. So I'm just curious why it's not all lumped together yet.
Yeah, no, this is one of those really messy things whereby the politics and the planning and all of that aren't in great alignment. Essentially, I'll give you a very long answer to a simple question. So there is already kind of a long distance Amtrak service that goes from Chicago to LA. And that train goes through Southern Colorado. And when this whole idea was being developed, there was the hope that they could reroute that train to go up into Pueblo. So that would kind of serve Pueblo to Trinidad and have that segment, addressed. In the meantime, we're working with the Federal Railroad Administration, which is a federal government agency that oversees this stuff. And they have told us that our service development plan boundary should stop at Pueblo because that's kind of, in their mind, the population center cutoff that kind of justifies having a new train service. So we need to work on that. Definitely before we go to the voters, we need to figure out kind of defining that plan. But essentially the idea is there were two sort of efforts that kind of were together and kind of separated and kind of need to bring back together again.
That's helpful. So if we get asked, so just to understand it's connected to obviously the Amtrak connection and existing routes, and it's just a matter of sorting out language. It's not that it's not being considered. It's just not formally a part of the plan yet because of it pre-existing routes and things. So that's helpful to understand. Thank you.
That was really well articulated. Yeah, wow.
Oh,
that was good.
Oh, good. Then I understood it. Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want me to call on folks, or do you want to do it? I'm happy either way. I'm just nervous I might miss somebody.
You can call them. We will tell you if we see anybody else.
Okay, I think I see Shireen. Maybe not. Candace, see your hand.
Yes. Can you go back to your slide that showed the rail map?
Yeah,
please?
absolutely.
And I was trying to see if we actually had anything on the southern end north of Castle Rock. It's there's a broken line there, so I was looking to see if you had any rail. Yeah, there we go. Do you have rail from Denver to Castle Rock?
I do. There are some tracks that currently, I don't know if you're familiar with the RTD Mineral Light Rail Station. Sometimes
Yes,
you'll
I
notice
am.
big orange trains that hang out over there. Those big
Okay.
orange trains are those tracks right there. Yeah.
So under this system, would the folk in the South Metro area, Centennial specifically, would we be able to use this Front Range rail system? Would it be available for us? There's parts of Centennial that border Broadway at the mineral station, but just coming in, would this make a stop in Centennial that would get us down to the southern parts, Castle Rock and beyond?
Nope.
Nope. That's a good question. I think it is still being finalized. Part of the issue here, right, of course, is that we're building this from scratch in a lot of ways. And so you're not going to build all the stations at once. There is a vision at some point to have a station, kind of whether it be at Mineral or kind of that kind of South Metro area. So that is, and again, it's funny because this map shows the district, not inherently the actual route, but that is definitely in conversation. Kind of the Mineral RTD station is a good candidate. The other area they're thinking about is closer to Santa Fe and C470. So that is likely a station that will be identified. Yes.
Okay, well, I just want to add my 2 cents worth in
Yeah,
here, if
yes,
you don't
please.
mind, to say that that 25 South corridor
Yeah.
is so congested, even
Yeah.
with the improvements of widening 25 South, that
Yeah.
we definitely could benefit to alleviate the congestion and move the traffic along. And there are a lot of people coming up from the South working into Denver who would definitely probably benefit to have that connection coming from the city south of, say, Centennial, for instance,
But the
going north into
trucks are
Denver.
on Santa Fe. The trucks
Right.
along Santa Fe.
I understand, Andrea. You'll have your moment. Give me a minute, please. But I would very much like to ask that they consider bringing something up, because along 25 going north, RTD does have track service. So just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate hearing that. That's I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shireen, are you back with us, or is it still just a hand? Just a hand. All right. Anyone else? Anyone I
Testing,
missed?
testing, testing. Oh,
Oh,
can
we
you
hear
hear
you.
me?
Yeah, now we do.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just fixed the mic. So yes, I am with CDOT, the multimodal plan branch, and I know that there was a representative that was presenting to the CDOT interns for Front Range Passenger Rail, and so appreciate that. I had a question on the date of launching the service. I was reading on Twitter that it was going to be the latest 13 years from now, which I don't understand why that's taking so long to launch if you're using existing rail. Can it be sooner than that?
I think realistically, it could be sooner in terms of 10-ish years. So we will need federal funding to make this happen. So we need both local funding and federal funding. And the federal funding has kind of an environmental review process. It takes a fair amount of time to actually get through all of that and just to show the federal government that we're using their money well. So they want us to measure all the potential noise, vibration, impacts. They want us to be able to document how this is a benefit to the community and how any negative impacts are worth it. Additionally, while we're going to use existing freight tracks, we will have to also in some places build kind of what they call them siding tracks. So it's a little track on the side where a train can hang out and wait in case two trains are, coming at each other at the same time. And then we have to build some safety improvements, so some new signaling features. And we have to work out agreements with the freight railroads and with someone who will actually be operating the train. So I know it sounds like a disappointingly long time period, but the last thing I want to do is to tell you it'll be sooner when it's not realistic. So I think 13 years is the number to kind of have to sit with, unfortunately.
And that's, like you said, that you need to get more federal funding to expedite the project.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a key part of being able to pay for it. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bob Epstein.
Right, had it on mute. Thank you. This legislation was proposed, unfortunately, during COVID.
I know.
So there wasn't a lot of time to work because these sessions were short circuited and etc. However, what I at that time I was with the senior lobby, which is now the Colorado Colorado Center for Aging, but we helped pass this legislation on because of the need for that type of transportation from Wyoming at that time through New Mexico. Knowing full well that there are state governments that are involved that would have to come on board with a plan, with a constructive plan to get this done. Also, with a promise for some federal funds. How much, we didn't know because ARPA funds would be involved and at that time and etc. So what we're facing right now is to confine the railroad district right now to within Colorado and then expand later on. If I'm right. Is that right, Chrissy?
Yeah.
Okay. So how are we going to do this with the least construction possible would be existing railroad tracks, which would be the freight lines going down the corridor that's looked at here. Whether it would branch off other ways would mean other constructions or railroad constructions, and then we would have to find the land to do this. So it's a great project. How long it's going to take? We're in the throes right now of various legislative turnouts or turnovers, I would say. We have the lead legislators are leaving, and the ones coming in from all the states, but all three states at this point. So how are we going to get this out to the public? And what is the going to say? It won't be in 2023, possibly something in 2024. So we're going to look for that. And Dr. Mack is going to be looking for that, of course, because of this transportation, but also I, as a volunteer lobbyist who lobbies for this, will be looking for that because it also involves senior transportations and what facilities were beyond these railroads to accommodate seniors. So we have to see what happens, but it does require a great deal of lobbying and coordination and collaboration, but it's a good concept. I look forward to taking it myself and going, because I have relatives in New Mexico. So, thank you.
No, I appreciate that history. That was incredible. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome, Chrissy.
Who else am I missing? I should probably look at the chat, shouldn't I?
There's a couple in the chat, yes.
Let's see what we got. Okay.
From Sarah Lee, I believe, is the first one.
Thank you. So yes, the rail that we're looking at would connect Fort Collins to Longmont. That is part of the vision, absolutely.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's awesome. And then to Loveland too? It's because it goes through Loveland. Nice.
Yep.
And there,
yep.
Is there like a stop in Longmont?
Yeah, so nothing has been completely cemented yet, but the idea is for north of Denver, likely the stops would be Denver, Boulder, Longmont, Loveland, Fort Collins.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's so cool. I don't know anything about a rail. So like I know like a bus better, but like so I didn't know if rails had stops like that or not. But that's awesome. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to hear that it
Mhm.
feels good to you.
Yeah, it does. I think as a like I have a vision impairment and I have like a hard time getting to that area. So I think that would really help.
My best friend has retinitis pigmentosa, and she lives in Houston and had to stop driving about 4 or 5 years ago. And that is a really hard place to live, not being able to drive. So I think about her
Ooh.
a lot when thinking about this project. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
That's awesome. That's so good that you think about her because thinking about her and knowing her experiences, that's really important to like the work that you do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. Could the Front Range funding project support a community like Castle Rock to fill the gap, so to speak, between its? Yep. Great question. Here's what's funny. So it's likely Castle Rock would make a lot of sense for a stop for passenger rail. Absolutely. It probably wouldn't stop again until, the Littleton area and Denver area. So it's going to be challenging to kind of ideally connect some of the unfinished RTD projects, but ideally it would kind of serve that sort of southern tech center, Lucent Boulevard kind of area. So I don't think I'm answering your question very well, but the idea is definitely to serve that kind of population and employment center on the kind of southwest side. Okay, I think those were the questions, but I'm happy to take more or answer anything else.
Candice, was there another question from you?
No, Candace has no other questions.
Thank you, Candice.
I have one more if there is time, real quick, Chrissy. This is Cammie
Yeah.
again. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering for the communities that are a little frustrated with RTD, we don't have to unpack that, but just what are the language or messages that you have found to be helpful when you have run into folks who are really frustrated and the thought of giving more money is not what they want to do? And I know you're not necessarily the lobbyist group for this at any point, but I'm sure that's come up in conversations already, or we all know.
Pretty much every conversation we go to and every meeting, we learn more about part of Fast Track's and RTD's transit system that wasn't actually built yet. So that is an enduring challenge. I think that there are a few key messages that we use. One of them is, Fast Tracks was really impressive, right? This plan to build commuter rail all throughout the Denver metro region. They had a pretty aggressive first step, pretty massive. And I think that we're trying to take more of a kind of measured first step and kind of do something that's a little more implementable from day one, so we don't get in over our, ahead of our skis kind of thing. Additionally, there are some areas like kind of along the Northwest Rail area where, because we'll be making some infrastructure upgrades, we might be able to kind of help RTD potentially start their service there too, because we're going to be making some of those same track improvements. So maybe we can actually help bring to fruition some of the RTD work that isn't completed. I think the last thing that I talk about is that our legislation that created the district has a requirement that before we go to the voters for a ballot initiative, we have to have a published service plan and a published financing plan. And the idea there is that there's enough kind of safeguards in place and enough work that's been done so that things are, finalized, have been worked through, have been determined to be implementable before we go to the ballot. So that's kind of our key ways we're trying to address and the RTD challenges.
Thanks for that. Super helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move on. But if anybody has any more questions, they can go ahead and put them in the chat. Chrissy, is there a good email or some way that all the community can also get it? Perfect.
Yep, so that's my email. I'm putting our website in the chat as well. I would love to stay in communication with you all and be in touch. So thank you so much. I'll let you all go back to your meeting, but it's been a pleasure, and I'm always around if anyone want to talk some more. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we're going to have Arnaldo Colon from Lyft do a presentation. So Arnaldo, you are, the floor is yours.
All right, let me see. It looks like I need permission to present as well.
You should have permission now.
Let's see. All righty. Perfect. I'm having some issues on my side. I'm not a Zoom guy. So are you guys able to see my presentation?
We can see your screen. It says Lyft
Perfect.
bikes and scooters.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about what Lyft Bikes and Scooters is. I'll give you guys a little bit of information as to who we are as a system, and then we'll go into Denver and talk about some of the great things we're doing here. So first, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Arnaldo Colon, born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I moved to Denver about 11 years ago to work for the federal government. And I joined Lyft in September of 2018 when we started the Bikes and Scooters program. And here we are, 5 years later. I mean, just bigger than ever, and being able to just continue, connecting people and bridging that last mile gap. And what do I do? I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the bikes and scooters in the field. And this includes, engagement and partnerships with local regulator, in this case, Dottie, and venue ops. We do a lot of work with the Broncos, Rockies, and when it comes to like large events, and just in general market growth, and how can we sustainably just continue growing the market and serving the people of Denver. So what does Bikes and Scooters do? We are a group of like mobility solutions that people love and cities need. And I always talk about in terms of breaking this into two things. Like when we talk about people love is being able to provide an alternative mode of transportation that connects people with the city. We always talk about vehicles, and it's the main mode of transportation for a lot of people that live outside the city. And they need to commute in, and there's always concerns. We're always in a vehicle trying not to hit another person, thinking about how are we going to find parking, and it's stressful. I personally live out east as northeast in Commerce City, and commuting every day to the city, it's like stressful. It's 45 minutes of deciding whether I want to take the HOV lane to just get to work faster, or what do I need to do in order to just get to where I need to be. But then when I have the opportunity to just ride our bikes and or ride our scooters within the city, it's like I get to enjoy the city. I get to like see the city, hear the city. I'll plug in a quick thing. If you guys have never watched the movie August Rush, I suggest you do it, because there's music and everything. And the cities have a music that we don't hear when we're in a car, because we are just so focused that we're not enjoying our city. And the second part is cities need. We want to be able to provide alternative mode of transportation where we're bridging that last mile gap. The train, a lot of people don't continue to use vehicles because the bus doesn't get them to where they need to be, the train doesn't get them to where they need to be. So we want to work with the transit authorities to be able to provide that last mile gap and to continue ensuring that people have that mobility access. Work with Dottie to continue building bike lanes and provide a safe transportation system for everybody. So talking a little bit about the benefits for the riders, sustainability. the bike on the left is a city bike in New York, and it's like choosing a bike over a car just once a day reduces the average person's carbon emissions from transportation by 67%. There was a study done in the UCLA University a few years back, where it has the ability to, like, by providing more like bike trips, we can lower carbon emissions. It's faster. You'd be surprised how commuting in the city could be a lot faster, sometimes even just by walking. But in a bike, how you can get to point A, from point A to point B, by being in a bike rather than a vehicle. And I challenge you to do it. Try to take a car after a Rockies game from 19th and Wynkoop to the 16th Street Mall. There is a big chance you're going to be able to walk all the way to the 16th Street Mall and back, and there is a car still, parked in the middle of the road. So this has that ability, gives you the freedom. It gives you that rider control where you have more opportunities to decide where you want to go, in terms of what roads you want to take. Now with having the protected bike lanes in the city, it's a lot easier to control where you want to go, and it's fun. Like I said earlier, it's enjoying that music that the city provides. In general, Lyft operates in different markets. Right now, we are in 8 different cities in the United States, including New York City, Chicago, Washington, San Francisco, Portland, Columbus, Ohio, Boston, and here in Denver. And in addition to that, we also provide hardware and software through our partner of PBSC. So we operate in about 15 different countries. The biggest, connection that we made in 2019 was adding Mexico City to the wallet of being able to provide bikes in Mexico City for Lyft. So 2022, we had about 3.5 million unique riders and over 52 million trips. And I'll get into the details about Denver here shortly. And about 89%, this was a survey conducted with the users, that people are using our bikes and scooters to connect to transit options in their cities. So now let's bring it to Denver. That's enough outside of the city. So let's talk about what's happening here. We launched in, I apologize, there's a typo in there. It says September 6th of 2023. We did not launch 6 days ago. We actually launched in September 6th of 2018 with about 150 scooters. This was the initial pilot program that the city was conducting. I believe it was under the RTD program. And then in 2021, Lyft and Lime signed a 5-year deal with the city. At that point, we increased to 1,500 scooters, and we introduced our e-bikes, which at the point was 300. And today we have 2,930 scooters and a minimum of 586 bikes, or a 20%. So every day we have to have at least 20% of our total devices have to be bikes. So like I said, we average about 2,930 scooters, and we have 586 bikes around the city. Since the inception of the program, we've had over 7 million trips, and over 2.4 million unique users have used the program. Obviously, a lot of these have, kind of like been growing up a lot over the last 2 years. If we go back to 2022, Denver alone had over 2 million trips for Lyft. If we go back to 2021, 1.7 million trips. And even during the pandemic, we remained open, and we had over 800,000 trips even during the pandemic. And we connect with the city. We have our Community Pass program, which is a program that SNAP, Medicaid, or any other like government assistance like recipients could get into a discounted program where they can sign up. It's $3 a month, and they have unlimited rides at 5 cents a minute. The regular user pays $1 to unlock the device and 39 cents per minute. So this is a way of us having an ability to engage with, and with the city and provide additional like discounted rides for anyone that qualifies for the program. Number two, we worked with Denver Dottie, which it's our regulator, and some of the work, and I'll get into more details in the next slide. We've been working to add stations, and I know it's a very important topic for everybody in this call, for us as well, and for our users. I think it's very important for our users, the organization of devices. I mean, I know there's always a concern about these are being left in front of my store, in front of a business, or in front of a ramp. And we're working with the city to continue deploying stations. As of today, we have about 70 of this in the city. And the ultimate goal is to have over 300 stations around the city for users to start and end their trips. We also have a 30% of our fleet every day has to be deployed into opportunity areas. These are areas that the city has defined as either low income, low accessibility to transportation, or low vehicle ownership. And every day, 30% of our fleet, bikes and scooters combined, have to be deployed to these areas by 7 a.m. And so far this year, from January through June, over 100,000 trips have been, generated from these opportunity areas. And we also have a service agreement with the city where anytime that a person reports an improperly parked scooter or a bike via the 311 option or directly with the city, they also have right-of-way enforcement agents that are doing inspections while they're out in the field, and we must take action within 2 hours of being informed. This means that if it's a device that it's been reported as broken, or this is a device that was improperly parked, or it's blocking an ADA ramp, we have to act within 2 hours. And when I say act, it has to be resolved. It's not in 2 hours I will go and try to figure it out. It's at the 2 hour mark, we have to let the city know that we're done and this device has been moved. And then the last thing, engagement. We do a lot of engagement around the city with the Denver Downtown Partnership. We, as you guys may have enjoyed earlier in the summer, with the Viva Streets that happened 4 times in the summer, and hoping that it continues next year. We were heavily involved with NACTO. They had the conference here back in May, and the upcoming week, we have Denver Startup Week, which we will be supporting and providing mobility devices. Also, with the Denver Streets Partnership, we work closely with them to provide funds to the Blake and Market bike lanes that were recently open. I want to say maybe 3 months ago. And we work, like I said earlier, we work a lot with like the venues and teams. We worked with the Colorado Rockies to install a station in their property on the north side of the stadium on 22nd and Blake, just to allow, like more people to enter the game without having to just walk over, dozens of scooters. We also, for like major events, one thing to mention is like Broncos. We just had a game this past Sunday. We attend those events and we have staff on site ensuring that we are like clearing the way, making sure that people are not tripping over the devices, but also making sure that people have the availability of devices available for when the game is over. And the last thing is a great partnership that we have had since 2020 with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, where we have partnered also with a nonprofit called Joy's Kitchen in the southwest part of Denver, Lakewood area. And we have delivered over 500,000 meals since 2020. So it's not all about the bikes and the scooters and the technology and all the cool things. We're here, we're in Denver, and we want to be a part of the city that we serve. And we want to do that by making sure that we're putting our resources, that are available for the community. I mentioned a little bit about the stations. That picture on the right is right in front of Union Station, that 16th and Wynkoop. And that is one of our, we call them lightweight stations, where it has space for up to 6 bikes to be docked into the system. And then there is a 20 feet space on the side of it to organize scooters. Like I mentioned, today we have 70 around the city. 28 of these are of these hardware stations. And as of July, we have space for over 1,000 bikes and scooters to be organized within these stations. 250 in Lodo, 250 in Rhino, and over 175 in the CBD district. But also, one thing is that if you're riding a scooter and you're looking to end your ride, if you're within 100 yards of the station, it will ping you. It will tell you free parking nearby, please park in this area. So this is a way of us engaging with the customers to make sure that people are aware of where these stations are and how can we better organize the city. Hello, Chloe. This is a scooter that we introduced in 2023, I would say in May. And some of the benefits, obviously, we have seen the black and pink. And I mean, that's kind of like the staple of the Lyft scooters out in the field. So we're switching things a little bit. We're going from a black paint to an actual reflective paint. So these scooters are, provide better security for the user as it is more visible at night. It also has dual brakes. It has front shocks. It has blinkers, which is definitely something new. And these blinkers are in the front and in the back, and they're really bright LED lights. So if you're riding a scooter at night, the visibility that these devices providing is a lot greater than previous generations. But it also has the capability for you to place your phone and lock it. And the app will give you the option for turn-by-turn navigation. So you no longer have to like put your phone in your pocket and try to pull it while holding the scooter with one hand. Now you can just lock your cell phone into the scooter and then just kind of like let navigation take you where you go. And as while that is happening, your phone is also charging if your phone has that capability. As of September of 2023, we have converted about 50% of our fleet into this new model, and we're going to continue sustainably retiring that older fleet that we have out there still. We provide our users with a lot of the education in app. Here you can see of when you're starting your ride, and if you're a first-time user, it will guide you through a series of directions of what to do and what not to do. And then the image on the right is the parking nudges, which is what I was sharing on the previous slide, in terms of when you are within 100 yards from a station, it will tell you free parking nearby. And then in the app, you can just see the purple like P for parking as to where to go. And what makes us different? We're very committed to continue supporting all of the organizations in terms of transportation, the city. And one thing that we started doing in 2021 is we started moving away from kind of like that gig economy or hiring contractors. We started hiring in-house staff. So our mechanics, our drivers, our dispatchers, the people that are like running the shifts and putting the devices where they need to be. And since then we have, created over 100 jobs, making us the largest team in any office in Lyft, not just for bikes and scooters, but also, in the rideshare division, which it's a big accomplishment. And this year also, we introduced electric vehicles into our fleet. So Lyft is committed to electrify its fleet by 2030, and we're also leading the pack of that. As of now, we have converted 25% of our fleet of vehicles. These are the vehicles that go with the batteries and like replace the batteries in the scooters or the bikes and transport the scooters and bikes in and out of the field. We now have 5 of these, in our fleet, and we also charge them here in the warehouse. So yeah, I went through really fast for the sake of time, but I'll open the floor if there are any questions. Also, that is my contact in case anybody would like to reach out via email, if time is not enough here. So yeah.
Arnold, I have a question. What do you guys do as far as like sanitizing them? Just because we are starting to go back in with, you know, the whole COVID stuff increasing.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so every device so we touch about 10% of our fleet on a daily basis. This means that we bring them back to the depot just for an inspection, but also to make sure that they're sanitized. So that is part of our protocol, that about 10% of the fleet that rotates in and out of the warehouse on a daily basis will be inspected, but also sanitized. Danny McLean.
Hi, yeah, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you mentioned sustainability is one of your key values. I know that a few years ago there was a study released on the lifespan of the scooters, and at that point I think it was 28 and a half days that the scooters lasted before they were essentially trashed, just because, you know, people aren't very gentle with them and they get thrown in rivers and so on and so forth. So I'm curious as to what you folks are doing in that regard, because that's pretty inherently unsustainable. And then similar to that, like what is the end of life process for scooters and e-bikes? Like what are they recycled? Where do they go? What information do you have in that regard?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I'll start with the lifespan of the scooters. Yes, if you go back to 2018, 2020, some of the early iterations of these devices were not, like the best. And a lot of work that Lyft has been we have been doing with Ninebot, Segway, it's designing our own device to make sure that it lasts longer. I comfortably say that when we started introducing our previous generation of scooters, that was in April of 2022, we had scooters that had been in the field since 2020. Obviously, yes, some scooters are going to have issues. We're gonna find them in the Platte River, and at that point, it's not safe to bring that device back to life because it could be corroded or have many other issues. The current scooter that we now have in the field, Chloe, is expected to last 4 years. So a lot of work has been done to ensure that the devices are reinforced. And then on the second part of the question, in terms of what's the end of the life, so we have partnered with 2 different companies, Echo Recycling and Redwood Materials. So Echo just manages all of like how we sustainably remove these devices, not from our warehouse. They don't end up in a landfill. But also with Redwood to recycle the batteries. So, you are not going to see our devices in just the landfill. In Aurora, or managed by like waste management. Everything is just handled in-house with different service levels agreements to make sure that these the aluminum is reused, and then also the batteries are reused, because as you may know, these are lithium-ion batteries. So when a pack goes bad, there's over 100 smaller batteries. So it's not all the batteries that are bad, and some can be recycled and the other ones could be reused.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, Bob Epstein.
Yeah, Arnaldo, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you for all the information, but do you provide any training in the use of your devices to customers?
We do. So when you first ride, you go through a series, and here in the presentation, you don't, this doesn't have, it's 3 out of the 5 slides that the user receives, but it gives them a guide of how to use a scooter, where to ride it. So also the scooters have like a do not ride on sidewalks. And obviously it goes over like riding safely, being respectful of the rules of the road, and parking responsibly. So the users do get an education part at the beginning, and there's also refreshes. If I am not mistaken, it's every 3 months. The next time you take a ride, it will ask you to go through the training part.
Right, but I just want to make sure that you know that a person can operate that device before they rent it from you.
Yeah.
for safety purposes.
Yes, yes. And Deanna, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna mention, it's not a question for you, but I was just gonna say, next month, from October 2nd to October 8th is going to be National Week Without Driving. So everybody will have a chance, to do connect with the nation, to get a chance to, leave your vehicle at home. So, it's an opportunity to use Lyft. If you are, you want some more tips on how to use these, there is that Lyft app, but you can also come to us and join our Lyft and Uber basics, and we can show you how to do that as well. So thank you.
Awesome, that's great. I appreciate that, and I mean, if Deanna or anybody in your team would like to work on this and see how we could just reach out to more people and use bike and scooters, definitely let's work on that. I don't know if we are at time, but I do see a hand raised, at least on my side. Cami.
I was just going to ask, Anand, if you can refresh me again on what are the lower age limits for using these? And if there's any talk about those age limits changing across the industry or maybe here in Colorado.
Yes, so the age is 18. And you have to have a valid driver's license in order to use it. There has been different conversations in other cities. For example, in Portland, the city has asked to lower it all the way down to 14. There are some bikes that are utilized to commute, and there are subsidized rides with the city of Portland for students. So there are definitely conversations around the industry as to what is the right age. In Denver, as of now, it's 18, and it looks like it will stay as that. There's a lot of education that needs to happen before I would say I'm comfortable lowering that age. I think that is all of the questions. So yeah, thank you everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity, and save my email, reach out at any time. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. If anyone has any other questions at any point, feel free to put them in the chat. But we are going to go ahead and open up the floor just for any community updates. If there's anything, any events coming up, anything you want to share out with us, please either unmute, raise your hand, put it in the chat. Now's the time to do so. No, nothing going on. I find that hard to believe. There's always something going on.
Yeah, hi Stephanie. Sorry, this is Sarah. There's a lunch and learn about access on demand, which is Accessoride, and Accessoride users can use Lyft and Uber for 25% or $25 off of each ride for 60 rides per month. And then there's also a couple other apps that they could use, Z-Trip and also Metro Taxi. So I'll put the info for that lunch and learn in the chat if you want to learn more about that. It's on the 19th of December, or not December, sorry, September. But yeah, I'm looking for the link for the registration.
I got it in there for you while you were talking about it. I threw
Thanks,
it in there.
Tammy.
So we double yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, I was like, where did that go? I'm not very organized. So thanks, Cam.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that I'm looking forward to that lunch and learn. Thank you for hosting that. Looks like, yeah, RTD zero fare for youth from now until August of 2024. Anyone who is 19 years or younger rides RTD for free, which is awesome. So that's going on. Yeah, Bob.
Sorry, Steph, had to unmute. Yes, just a note for the LCC, your LCC task force. The Douglas County LCC and their Transit Solutions is in the process of hiring a new mobility manager. And I hope to have that process completed within the next few weeks. And then they'll start scheduling regular meetings of the Transit Solutions and the LCC. I got that from from the county staff person, Allison. I don't know if she'll be on this week's the 20th task force meeting, but that is the news as of last Thursday. So we'll see what happened now. I keep bugging him every time I go to a meeting and she shows up. She knows that I'm going to bug her. So we'll see what happens. But there is, as you see, there's a lot of construction on roads, etc. that's happening around the state. Especially from in the Douglas County, Arapahoe, and Denver area. I get a hunch some of that is leftover ARPA funds for transportation that has to be used up, but it's also needed transportation services. So keep tuned. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, you too. You always got a lot of good information. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Danny?
Yeah, I wanted to share, I don't have specific details, so I apologize in advance for that. But the week without driving, October 2nd through the 8th, RTD is going to be collaborating with the Denver Streets Partnership to do a walk and roll. And from what I understand, it's going to be youth led, which is pretty cool. And there should be tables, sponsored by RTD set up along the walk and roll route, handing out water and information, for example, on zero fare for youth. So I would invite you all to keep an eye out for more details on that and to join if you'd like.
Awesome. Thank you. If anyone has, I don't think there's anything in the chat. I don't know if there's a link or anything anyone has, but thank you. Thank you, Cami. Cool. Yeah, thank you. Candace?
Hi. So this was a great presentation on the bikes as well as on the FFR. I wanted to say that Centennial Streets at South Glen this weekend, September the 14th, Saturday, we will be having a sidewalk chalk festival at the streets at South Glen, where several artists from all over the area come in and do sidewalk chalk art. Music with bands. So feel free to take the RTD buses to the South Glen area. That's on University and Arapahoe. Also, the second thing is our Arapahoe Bridge, the bridge at Arapahoe over Big Dry Creek. Completion date is looking to be now in December. It was going to be October. But due to weather and replacing a Denver water pipeline, we got pushed back. But you can use that as a travel area to get into the streets at South Glen. So try to come out and see us this weekend. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. That sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you. Any other, and the chat, everyone in the chat is on it. Send in the links and everything. I appreciate it. Anyone else have any updates before we move on to wrap up the meeting today?
I'm just going to give a reminder. Don't forget the focus group next week. Please, please, please come. I would love your input for the LCCs and rebuilding in those counties that haven't been active recently. So please come join.
Yeah. Come join. It'll be fun. Latoya, if you have the link for that, could you paste that in the chat as well? Cool. Well, then I
have one quick thing real quick. I work for the Denver Office on Aging, and we're working closely with HOST, the housing stability folks, and they have 4 sessions coming up, 2 in September, 2 in October, at various rec centers, and I'll try to find that real quick and put it in the chat. But we would love to help folks get out the word. It's all about housing. So they're going to have a lot of different resources for people around housing initiatives, how to stay housed, how to, apply for home ownership as well as rents, this and that. So we're all doing a big effort around that, twice in September and twice in October. So help us get the word out, okay? Thanks.
If any of you would like for us to share out some of this information and updates that you provided, if you reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to share on our website and social media platforms. So you can either email it directly to me or to info@drmac-co.org, and we will help get the word out. Thanks. Thanks, Steph.
Yeah. Any last call for updates?
I guess I have one more from the RTD side that I almost forgot about, but we're doing with a really cool organization called Warm Cookies of the Revolution, if you folks have heard of it. We're doing what's called a civil rights mixtape. So it's on Saturday, September 23rd, and it's going to be a really fun event. So it's hosted by RTD Civil Rights Division, but it's really just a celebration of civil rights as a whole. So there's going to be food provided, there's going to be music, spoken word artists. So I would love for you folks to come to that as well, and I'll provide the link to RSVP for that.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. Sounds cool. I love the name. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Colleen, and she's going to wrap us up here.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you all for those updates. Great. That's all we have for you today. So we're going to wrap up the meeting, and we hope to see you all next month at our educational offering on Tuesday, October 3rd from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.